"Don't look at her," someone whispered from the back. Glasses clinked nervously. Napkins trembled in hands. The room shifted as she walked in. Everyone knew the rumors. Everyone knew the power she wielded with a single word, a single phone call. Clara, the billionaire's daughter, moved like royalty, her presence pressing down on the room, silent but undeniable. Servers froze mid-step. Guests straightened in their seats. Even the manager hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or bow. Maya wiped the counter slowly, deliberately, pretending to focus on nothing. Every eye in the room was on Clara, but Maya's hands didn't shake. Her gaze met Clara's once, just once, and held. The tension was sharp enough to cut. Conversations died. Forks hovered in midair. Phones quietly rose from pockets, ready to capture anything. And then Maya spoke.
"You're not who you say you are," she said. The room went still. Everyone waited. Even Clara paused, her violet eyes narrowing, the practiced mask of control slipping just a fraction. "You hide behind a name," Maya continued, "a name no one would ever suspect. But I know the truth. You're Rose, always have been." A collective intake of breath, a ripple of disbelief. Clara's friends shifted. Phones clicked. Glasses rattled. Clara's hands clenched. "You can't say that," she hissed, voice barely a whisper but loaded with venom. "I just did," Maya said, calm, steady, unafraid. Everyone feared Clara, until now. The room held its breath. The untouchable billionaire's daughter has been touched. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you felt that chill already, make sure you hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story will remind you how fast arrogance can turn into regret. Now, let's begin. The restaurant was quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the calm before a storm. Crystal chandeliers glinted overhead, silverware polished to a mirror shine, and the scent of truffle and roasted lamb floated in the air. The sun had begun to dip behind the skyline, painting the glass walls with streaks of gold. It was a cool evening, but tension made the air feel heavy. Clara Williamson entered. She didn't walk, she glided, every movement precise, deliberate. Heads turned, whispers trailed behind her like shadows. She smiled once, faintly, but there was a sharpness in her violet eyes, a warning, "Cross me, and you'll regret it." Guests shifted nervously in their seats. Servers froze mid-step. Even the manager, usually unflappable, hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or bow. "Don't look at her," someone whispered from the back. Glasses clinked nervously, napkins trembled in hands. The room shifted as she walked in. Everyone knew the rumors. Everyone knew the power she wielded with a single word, a single phone call. Clara, the billionaire's daughter, moved like royalty, her presence pressing down on the room, silent but undeniable. Servers froze mid-step. Guests straightened in their seats. The chandelier above shimmered, casting sharp light across the polished marble floors, glinting on the gold-rimmed plates and crystal glasses. Every reflection seemed to capture her as if she owned the room, because, in a way, she did. Maya wiped the counter slowly, deliberately, pretending to focus on nothing, her apron crisp, her hands steady, her posture calm. Every eye in the room was on Clara, but Maya's gaze met Clara's once, just once, and held. It wasn't fear in Maya's eyes, it was recognition, awareness, a silent warning that she saw beyond the mask. The tension was sharp enough to cut. Conversations died, forks hovered in midair, phones quietly rose from pockets, ready to capture anything. Waiters froze mid-step, unsure if they should continue service or vanish entirely. The soft hum of the air conditioning and the clinking of glasses seemed to pause, as though the restaurant itself held its breath. Clara's heels clicked against the marble with precision, deliberate, echoing like a countdown to something no one dared name. She scanned the room with violet eyes, eyes that had made grown adults hesitate, children avert their gaze, and staff tremble. Maya continued her slow wiping, her hands moving in deliberate circles, the cloth brushing the polished wood like the calm before a storm. she heard whispers. "That's Clara Williamson? She's ruthless," one guest muttered. Another added, "People say she ruined a CEO for fun last month." But Maya didn't flinch. She only adjusted a plate, leaned slightly, and observed. When Clara reached the center of the room, a hush fell over everyone. She didn't need to speak. Her presence alone commanded attention. Servers straightened. Guests held their breath. Even the waiter carrying a tray of champagne glasses nearly stumbled. Then Maya spoke. "You're not who you say you are," she said. The room went still. Even the air seemed to tighten. The words rolled softly but carried weight enough to ripple across the room. Clara paused, her practiced mask of control slipping just a fraction. "You hide behind a name," Maya continued. "A name no one would ever suspect. But I know the truth. You're Rose. Always have been." A collective intake of breath. Phones clicked, glasses rattled. Clara's friends shifted uneasily, some leaning toward her, as if to shield her from the audacity of a waitress speaking so freely. Clara's hands clenched. "You can't say that," she hissed, voice low but venomous. "I just did," Maya said. Calm, steady, unafraid. The tension didn't release. Every patron, server, kid and staff member felt it, a strange, electric mix of shock, disbelief, and fascination. Clara had been untouchable until now, and suddenly she wasn't. Clara's violet eyes sharpened, scanning the room for allies. Phones hovered mid-air. The manager cleared his throat, unsure whether to intervene or let the storm play out. But Clara was frozen, and for the first time she looked uncertain. Maya stepped slightly closer, though not too much. She didn't shout. She didn't point. She simply stated what everyone was thinking, but afraid to voice. The untouchable had a secret, and someone had just unveiled it. Clara's lips tightened, but she didn't retaliate immediately. She was calculating, weighing her options. The name Rose had power she wasn't ready to reveal. Her mind raced. What had Maya seen? How could a waitress, someone she'd walked past countless times, someone she never noticed before, dare to call her out? In the kitchen, the other waitstaff exchanged nervous glances. "Did she just—" one whispered. "She did," said another, barely audibly. "Maya just said it." Maya's hands rested on the counter again, calm, professional, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But her heartbeat was racing. This was a dangerous game, and she knew it. One wrong word, one slip of composure, and Clara could destroy her with a single sentence or, worse, a phone call. But she didn't flinch. She wouldn't. Guests began to murmur quietly among themselves, some fascinated, others afraid. A few brave souls raised their phones higher, capturing the confrontation. Social media was going to light up within minutes with this scene. Everyone knew Clara Williamson, but Rose? That was a story no one expected. Clara's friends whispered among themselves, fear and disbelief mingling in the air. Clara herself took a step back, her posture still impeccable, but her composure subtly cracking. She was used to controlling the room, to bending everyone to her will. But Maya's calm defiance was unfamiliar territory. Maya finally straightened fully, letting her voice carry just a little more, not in volume, but in weight. Everyone has a truth they hide. Yours just got revealed. A hush fell over the restaurant. Even the clinking glasses, the soft chatter, the hum of the air conditioning, all of it seemed to pause. For a moment, Clara was just a girl in a white diamond dress. Not a billionaire's daughter, not a feared socialite, just someone whose secret had been uncovered. Clara's eyes flickered, scanning the room for help. Some guests looked away. Others stared, fascinated by the unfolding drama. Maya didn't care. She wasn't seeking approval. She was just stating reality. The manager finally stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me, Ms. Williamson, Clara cut him off with a sharp glance. Her hands trembled ever so slightly, hidden behind the folds of her dress. The mask of perfection faltered. And in that moment, Maya knew something crucial. Fear was a tool, but courage could break through it. The room was alive with tension, but Maya remained still. She didn't smile, she didn't bow, she didn't apologize, she just was. And for the first time, Clara Williamson, the untouchable billionaire's daughter, felt the weight of someone seeing her for who she really was. Rose. The moment lingered, long enough for phones to capture, long enough for whispers to spread, long enough for the universe to take note. The untouchable had been touched. And Maya? She returned to her work, calm, precise, professional, every movement measured. But inside her mind raced. The night was just beginning. Secrets had been exposed, powers tested, and the story of Clara Williamson and Rose was about to unravel in ways no one could predict. The tension hung like a delicate glass ornament, ready to shatter, and for the first time, everyone in that restaurant understood. Fear could be challenged. The restaurant had quieted, but the air was still thick with tension. Guests lingered at their tables, glasses half full, phones forgotten for a moment, as if waiting to see what would happen next. Clara stood frozen near the center of the room, her violet eyes scanning for allies, for anyone who could restore the world to the way she liked it, controlled, polished, untouchable. Maya moved with the same calm she had maintained since Clara's entrance. She wiped the counter, refilled water glasses and adjusted silverware. But her mind was elsewhere, on the truth that now hovered in the room, heavier than any crystal chandelier above. Rose. That name carried more weight than Clara could imagine. It wasn't just a secret. It was a life buried, carefully hidden behind wealth, privilege, and a practiced mask of perfection. A memory flickered in Maya's mind, a whisper she'd heard long ago about Rose, a girl who had grown up in a mansion lined with marble halls and silent servants, who had been told from birth to hide her weaknesses, to hide her feelings, to bury her real name and real self behind the image of Clara Williamson. Privilege, yes, but also a cage, gilded and unforgiving. Maya didn't speak yet. She let the silence grow, letting the tension stretch, let Clara's pulse tick faster in that quiet public exposure. Every person in the room felt it, the almost imperceptible quiver in Clara's hands, the subtle twitch in her lips, the sharp inhale before she tried to regain control. "Do you remember the piano room?" Maya asked, voice quiet but deliberate. Not loud enough to command the entire room, but just enough for Clara to hear, just enough for her to know someone knew. Clara's eyes flicked sharply, recognition and panic mingling. What are you talking about?" she said, though her voice lacked the practiced authority she normally wielded. "The one in the mansion on Elmwood Street," Maya continued, leaning slightly over the counter, careful to stay professional. "The one where your father would lock you in when you cried too loud. The one where you learned that tears weren't allowed." Clara froze. Her lips parted, then closed again. A flicker of something human, something raw and real, crossed her face. It wasn't fear, it was a reminder of a life no one else had seen, a girl named Rose who had been forced to vanish behind Clara's mask. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some didn't understand, some whispered, some tried to avert their gaze, but no one could stop watching the tension stretch like a tightrope across the room. Clara's control was fragile now, and everyone could feel it. Maya's hands moved with precise calm, placing a napkin gently on a nearby table. "You thought you could hide everything," she said softly. "The truth doesn't stay buried forever. People aren't just fooled by names or dresses or titles. They see things. They notice patterns. They remember what was done in silence." Clara's hands clenched at her sides, fingers pressing into the silk of her dress. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed, but her voice trembled. "Just slightly. Just enough." "I know enough," Maya replied. "Enough to see that Clara Williamson isn't who everyone thinks she is. Rose is the name your soul remembers. Rose is the girl who hid behind perfection. Rose is the one you tried to erase." The room's atmosphere shifted further. Whispers started again, quieter now, a cautious hum of disbelief. Some diners exchanged nervous glances. Others lifted their phones, subtly still recording. Their curiosity electric. A story like this, a story that tore through the veil of wealth and privilege, would spread faster than fire in dry grass. Maya straightened, her eyes never leaving Clara. She had seen this before in people of power, the slip of a hand, the falter of a gaze, the sudden awareness that someone could see past the mask. Clara's perfectly rehearsed poise was cracking, and it was delicious to witness, not in malice, but in truth. "You were never meant to hide your name," Maya said, voice soft but piercing. "Not from the world, not from yourself. And hiding it never helped. Did it, Rose?" The single word hit like a bell. Clara's jaw flexed, her lips pressed together. For a heartbeat, the billionaire's daughter was just a girl again, standing in the middle of a restaurant, exposed. No silver spoons, no diamond dresses, no power. Just a girl who had buried herself under lies to survive. The silence that followed was a living thing. It stretched across the restaurant, filling corners and sweeping through the air like an invisible tide. Waiters paused mid-step. Patrons leaned forward in fascination and fear. Even the chandelier seemed to quiver, catching the candlelight reflection like a mirror to Clara's faltering composure. Maya continued, gentle, deliberate. "People remember the way you treated them. The way you walked through life like you owned it, like you could erase anyone who crossed your path. But truth has a way of catching up." Clara's eyes darted to the nearest exit. Her mind calculating, plotting, searching for control. She tried to summon the same command she always wielded, the one that made investors obey, journalists bend, employees quake. But it faltered because for the first time, someone had seen past it. Maya didn't move.
She stayed in place, calm and professional, her words precise, her presence steady. Every step she had taken had been deliberate, every gesture measured. She wasn't there to fight Clara's wealth or power. She was there to expose a truth, one Clara had buried so deeply, even she almost forgot it existed. "Do you remember the night of the gala?" Maya asked, quiet enough that only Clara could hear. "The one where your father screamed at you for spilling champagne on the carpet? You thought everyone would think you were careless. But you knew. You were learning to hide." Clara's fingers trembled. She blinked rapidly, the practiced composure faltering. Memories she had locked away threatened to surface. The life she had built,
The reputation she had fought tooth and nail to maintain, all threatened to crumble under the quiet confidence of a waitress who refused to bow. Maya's gaze softened ever so slightly. "It wasn't the end of the world, was it? You survived. You became Clara Williamson, but every time you lied, every time you buried yourself under a name that wasn't yours, part of you stayed behind." Rose never left. Clara swallowed hard, her throat tight. She wanted to speak, to strike, to dismiss the audacity of this woman, but the words wouldn't come. The audience, the restaurant, the guests, the staff, all held its breath. And in that silence, the truth of Clara's buried self hovered in the air, undeniable and raw. Maya stepped closer, calm, deliberate, never threatening. "You can keep hiding, Clara. You can keep controlling, manipulating."
Smiling behind a mask, but tonight, the world sees Rose, and Rose deserves to be heard. The tension became almost unbearable. Glasses rattled on tables as nearby diners shifted. Servers paused mid-step, trays in hand, unsure what to do. Phones clicked, the quiet hum of the restaurant mixed with the soft murmur of disbelief. Clara's composure fractured just enough for everyone to see it, the fear of exposure mingling with a lifetime of perfection. Clara's voice finally came, low and sharp, but barely above a whisper. You don't understand." Maya smiled faintly, not cruelly, not mockingly, simply as one who had seen the truth and refused to step away. I understand more than you think, and I know this. Tonight isn't about fear. Tonight is about truth. Her words hung in the air like smoke. They didn't need to shout. They didn't need to gesture. The impact was in the calm certainty of her presence, in the deliberate knowledge that she had seen through wealth, power, and deception. Clara's friend shuffled uncomfortably, unsure whether to intervene. Phones hovered in midair, some recording, some capturing still shots. And the audience, those who had come for fine dining, witnessed the unraveling of someone untouchable. Maya finally stepped back, letting her hands rest lightly on the counter. The storm had been set in motion. Clara Williamson, the billionaire's daughter, had been touched, exposed not by gossip, not by scandal, but by truth. And for the first time, the world could see the girl behind the mask, because Rose had never truly left. And Maya, she was just getting started. Before we continue,
My beautiful family, if you're still watching right now, it means you're truly feeling this story. So please take a second to hit subscribe and drop a little heart in the comments. Every comment, every reaction, and every new subscriber pushes me to bring you even more emotional stories, deeper, stronger, and more inspiring than before. Now, let's get back to the story. It started with a laugh, not the polite, curated kind that floated through high-end restaurants, but the sharp, cutting laughter that left knives in your chest. Clara had been at the center of it, standing over Rosa, Maya's friend and co-worker, as if the world itself bent to her whim. "Honestly, how do you even work here?" Clara had said, voice smooth, but laced with venom. "It's almost embarrassing watching you try." Rosa had frozen, cheeks burning. The other servers looked away. Guests pretended not to hear, but Maya saw. Oh, she saw. Something inside her snapped. After the guests left, after Clara had strutted away with her entourage like royalty, Maya stayed behind, cleaning tables with a forceful calm that masked the storm in her chest. The words replayed over and over, embarrassing, pathetic, don't belong here. And then came the thought that changed everything. Who is she really? Maya began to observe. She noticed the little things Clara tried to hide. A slip of a name here, a photograph there, a whisper that didn't match her story. The more Maya looked, the more the cracks appeared, small at first, almost invisible, but enough for a careful eye to see. Hours of scrolling, digging through old news, social media posts, and obscure archives revealed a trail. Names, dates, places, patterns that all pointed to something Clara had tried desperately to bury. And then it hit Maya. Rose, that name. The one Clara carried like a ghost. The one the world was never supposed to know. Maya's fingers trembled as she pieced it together. She imagined Clara as Rose, a girl haunted by privilege, mistakes, and secrets that would ruin the carefully constructed empire she now commanded. And suddenly, the fear everyone felt around Clara didn't make sense. Fear is only power if it's true. But Maya had found the truth. It wasn't just curiosity that drove her. It was anger. Clara had humiliated Rosa in front of the world, reduced someone Maya loved to a trembling shadow, and walked away with no consequence. That arrogance, that untouchable pride, would meet its reckoning. Maya rehearsed the confrontation in her head. Quiet, deliberate words, calm, piercing eyes, the exposure of the name that would shatter Clara's veneer. Every detail mattered, every gesture calculated. By the next dinner service, Maya knew exactly what she had to do. She would stand, she would speak, she would strip away the mask, layer by layer, and when she did, the room would stop. Phones would rise, glasses would freeze mid-air. Conversations would die in the mouths of those too shocked to speak. Because Clara Williamson, the untouchable, the feared, the seemingly invincible, had a secret, and Maya was holding it. The next morning, the restaurant was quieter than usual. Not in the way that signals emptiness, but in the way that suggests a lingering echo of what had occurred. Silverware still glinted in the morning sun. Tables were polished to perfection. But behind the calm, a storm of whispers rolled quietly, like a tide beneath the surface. "Did you see what happened last night?" one server asked, glancing toward Maya, who was arranging dessert plates with the same grace as always. "Unbelievable," another replied. "I've never seen someone stand up to Clara Williamson like that. Not even the investors dared." Maya heard them, of course. She didn't react beyond a small, polite smile. Her hands were steady, her voice calm as she answered, "I just did what needed to be done, that's all." But the truth was, she felt a flicker of pride. Not for herself exactly, but for what courage could do, how it could quietly ripple through a room, through a building, through a city, changing the air itself. Outside, the city had already caught wind. By the afternoon, the whispers had turned into headlines in local papers, social media posts, and coffee shop chatter. "Billionaire's daughter exposed by Waitress," read one article. "Clara Williamson's secret revealed, the true identity of Rose." Even those who had never entered the restaurant knew. Clara, untouchable for years, now walked through the streets with a shadow trailing her. The confidence that once radiated like sunlight had dimmed. Eyes that used to widen in fear now glanced with caution, curiosity, and disbelief. Maya, meanwhile, continued her work. But something had shifted. Patrons looked at her differently now, not just as a waitress, but as someone who had dared where others had faltered. Invitations to events, small gifts, and subtle nods of recognition began to trickle in. Respect wasn't shouted, it was felt in glances, come as in quiet acknowledgements, in a new kind of power that didn't need money to validate it. Her colleagues watched in awe, whispering amongst themselves. "She didn't just embarrass Clara," one said. "She changed the game." Maya remained calm, her mind already turning to what came next. She had learned that courage wasn't a single act, it was a choice repeated over, and it demanded vigilance, discretion, and wisdom. Meanwhile, Clara had retreated. Not just from the restaurant, but from every public space she had once dominated. The name Rose, once hidden, now followed her like a ghost. Her friends whispered behind closed doors, her allies doubted, even the investors, men used to wielding influence and controlling empires, had been rattled. Clara walked alone in her penthouse, looking out over a city that no longer feared her. She had wealth, yes, but influence without respect was hollow. And respect was exactly what Maya had quietly earned in a single, unassuming night. Maya's life, too, had begun to shift. She was offered opportunities she had never dreamed of, new positions, invitations to events, recognition for her intellect and composure. But she chose carefully. She didn't need to flaunt her power. Her triumph was subtle, rooted in quiet courage. At night, when the restaurant's lights dimmed and the last customer left, Maya stood at the counter, watching the city skyline through the windows. The hum of life continued outside, but inside she felt something rare, completion, because she knew the truth. That courage wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it didn't need applause, it just needed to exist, and the world would notice, eventually. Clara, haunted by the exposure of Rose, had vanished into the shadows. Maya, steady and unshakable, had risen, quietly, intentionally, unstoppable. And in the quiet aftermath of fear, the waitress who had dared became the woman everyone quietly admired. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.